She would just pull out one drawer, hop up onto that, pull out the next drawer, hop up onto that, create a little staircase for herself, essentially.
Was your wife Tommy Pickles from Rugrats? You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we're going to be talking about childproofing. My son David is 14 months old now, and he's walking a little bit, so we're starting the childproofing process, and Brandon's son Noah has started to crawl up on his hands and knees, so he and his wife Austin are starting to think through that process. So we're going to go through everything that we've learned so far. It isn't much, but there's a lot that I've seen online that I just did not know about, that I didn't even think to do. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, before we get into it, Brandon, if our listeners want to get in touch with us, how can they find us?
You can find us on all major social media. Facebook, hello Facebook Live. Twitter, Instagram, you can find us at Dadsplaining Podcast, or you can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com.
Awesome. So if you're a regular listener of ours, today's episode is posting slightly later in the day than usual. There's a reason behind that. This past Friday, we were slated to get in the studio and record the episode. Friday morning, Brandon sends me a text. He's on his way to the pediatrician with his son, Noah, and I'm going to let Brandon take it from there.
Yes, it's all my fault. Sorry so much to the faithful listeners we got behind here. We will catch you guys up, but it's quite the saga. So for me, I'm just going to kind of give you some insight because it's been an interesting experience, and I know most parents will go through some form of this. So my son Noah has had an ear infection for over a month now. I know just about every parent's going to go through the ear infection situation.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're going to go on some kind of antibiotic. Now, normally you start off with something like amoxicillin, the tamest version, and then you kind of work your way up to the more powerful stuff. Well, we had done that. We had been through 3 different rounds of antibiotics over several weeks. Nothing was working. We tried the super-powered stuff, Augmentin. If you know your medicines and you've been through this before and you've gotten to the Augmentin stage, it's not good. That did not work either. And really, at this point, we were left with extreme options only. So the interesting thing, I guess, is that you can kind of do a course of, super-powered antibiotic is the last steps. And I can't even pronounce the name of this, Citrexilin or something of that nature. They all have names I can't quite pronounce. But basically, the last straw, really, before you start talking about getting tubes put in to really kind of go all the way, is shots. So we're here Friday morning, and my son has had a fever overnight, over like 101 degrees, really high. The ears have been bothering him, and at this point, we just know. It's been weeks. It's been over a month. We just know what's going on, so we take him to the pediatrician, and so we knew, unfortunately, at this minute, we were probably going to have to do some shots. And this thing is quite interesting because it's 3 days. Every day, you get 2 shots. They do them simultaneously in each leg because apparently it's literally so powerful that they have to split it up into 2 separate shots into 2 separate parts of the body. They can't put it all in one. It's apparently too powerful, and it has to get mixed in with, I think, like lidocaine or something else as well because it's just so freaking powerful. The pediatrician equated it to trying to take out a soda can with a cannon.
Ugh.
So imagine that you have to, instead of a BB gun, you're just taking a frickin' medieval cannon to the situation. So, I mean, sounds good because hopefully that's powerful enough, but at the same time, you got a teeny little baby.
I know.
Imagine blasting him with a cannon is all I'm thinking about. And no kid likes shots.
Yeah.
I don't really like them either. I'm grown up. Nobody likes them. So 2 a day, 3 days in a row, and this happens over the weekend too, which really sucks. So we had to go, we were in Friday, we were back in Saturday, we were back in again Sunday. To get these shots into his legs to help really kind of get through the situation. So here we are on Monday. We'll stay tuned next week. I'll let you know how it's going. Hopefully it's going okay because our last resort really is getting the tubes put in at a certain point, and that's just not going to be fun. I mean, obviously, the benefits of that is that you kind of get past it and you can move on and you don't have to worry as much about ear infections. I know lots of folks who've had that done. But it's been an interesting kind of learning experience. And there's really nothing less fun as a parent than having to subject your kid to shots, not just to get the shots, but because that means you have to hold them down.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I remember the most recent round of vaccines and everything that we did with David. It's so painful, and you have to hold the kid down so you feel like culpable and responsible in your child's pain.
Yep.
And you can see the blame in their eyes almost.
Exactly.
But it's for the best, and luckily they're at this age, this very young age, where they're not going to remember this. You know what I mean? In a few years, and they're just going to look back on this as they get older and say, okay, my parents did what was best for me.
That's right. I hope so. They're going to give me a nice coffee mug, #1 dad.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get bumped down to like #2 dad because of all the shots. He's like, that's because you gave me 2 shots every day, Dad. So hopefully not. Yeah, the attention deficit is a big deal because they can take the shots and then like 20 minutes later, they're just not really thinking about it anymore.
Exactly.
So it was quite an experience, and it just sucks going to the doctors several days in a row for that. One additional thing that we learned, or I guess experienced along the way, just to really put the nice bow on the crappy situation for my son. So the first day we went in on Friday, obviously if it's an ear infection, the doctor has to look in the ear and kind of see if there's a buildup. And the more I've done this, the more I've learned about it. So if I'm saying things that sound like, oh my gosh, what kind of research did he do? Like nothing. I know nothing about ear infections and how they work. But apparently, kids' ears, when they're first, when they're so young, like they're still developing in so many ways. One of the ways they're developing is in terms of their ear canals. And, you and me, people who are, adults, our ear canals have like a good shot from the ear down to the nose and the throat and everything. It's all kind of worked its way out and kind of straightened out. Kids don't have that. It's kind of a zigzag situation, and so it makes it a lot easier for things to get stuck up in there.
I didn't know that.
And it can kind of build up, obviously, and it can kind of create like a pus and stuff, and that's kind of what leads to the ear infection. So Friday, we're going in. Doctor has to see how severe it is. They check one ear, they check the other ear, they see what's going on. Doctor couldn't even see because he had so much earwax built up in his ears.
Yeah.
And this is something we don't think about. Again, like you and I, even though the Q-tips tell us we're not supposed to use them to clean our ears, we do it anyway.
Oh, yeah, always,
kids
every night.
Can't be doing that. So they had to essentially pressure wash his ears out to get the earwax out of there. And I honestly think that was the most traumatic experience of the entire situation, even more so than the shots. Just because the shots, it's like you come in, boom, wham, bam, you're done. But this was insane. They had to take what was essentially like a spray bottle. Because this all sounds comical, but like it's a kid. You can't do like a high-powered something,
right?
Or you can't put anything like really anything. Just about anything would be dangerous to put into their ear. So they take like a spray bottle essentially with a nozzle hooked up to it, and a teeny like a water pick. Like if you've ever used one for like cleaning your teeth, where it kind of sprays like a jet of water on your teeth. That's basically what they were doing with my son's ear. And so they were just spraying, and like water just like flowing in and out, and earwax and buildup just coming out of it. My God, the screaming was intense.
No, I know.
Like that was the worst, I think, of the whole experience. So I mean, I don't know. I guess information for everyone else out there where I'm sharing, just because if you go through this and you get down to the end game of the ear infection battle, like don't be surprised if this comes up and this happens. And God, best of luck to everybody. Just I hope my son gets better. He's got a little bit better. He's still kind of tugging on the ears. We'll see. We're still in the wait and see mode.
Yeah. It's rough. It is. And I feel for you and Austin and Noah especially. So we'll be thinking about you guys and praying that, that this works out and that Noah doesn't have to move on to those tubes.
Yeah, no fever today. That's kind
great.
of the
hey,
hallmark
baby steps,
there. So he's
literally.
going back to He's going back to daycare. So that's kind of the news for us. What's been going on with you guys, Jesse?
So David had a comparatively better week than Noah did.
Not hard to be.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this last week that David has taken his first steps.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. He's taken a few since then. He's still kind of in the cruise mode where he'd rather hold on to a surface, but if we pressure him enough, he will kind of take a step towards grabbing a toy out of our hands or something like that.
There you go.
But David has also been expanding his vocabulary. This past week, he picked up the word this.
Oh.
So if he's pointing at something or if he's holding something like his sippy cup or a toy, or he may say this, that, this, something like that. He's still working it out, but it's really exciting.
Yeah.
He's kind of picking up that vernacular. Something that also happened just over the weekend is that he has learned to play peekaboo. which is the
Okay.
cutest thing in the world.
I bet.
Yeah, when I discovered it yesterday, I was just freaking out. It was so cool.
Nice.
I think he picked it up in daycare. He didn't. I haven't been actively teaching him this, and I don't think my wife has either. So I think he picked it up from his daycare teachers. But I will cover my face with a toy or my hands or something, and then I'll reveal and say peekaboo. And then when I do it again, he actually takes his hands and covers his eyes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'll share the video that I posted to the Dadsplaining Facebook page so you guys can check it out. I was just blown away. I thought it was so cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing. The one thing that I've discovered that Noah has learned how to do is he's learned how to high five.
Oh, yeah, David's doing that too. Isn't that so fun?
It's amazing. You're right. I just can't, it boggles my mind that you can just say something like a command like high five, and he just like raises the hand right up there. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And then boom, you're just like, I mean, and there's not a better buddy-buddy moment than when you're high-fiving your son, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just been awesome. I mean, props to my wife, I just got to admit, because she's the one that taught him that.
That's so cool.
The thought didn't even cross my mind to start training my son. So now I'm just blurting out random phrases and trying to get him to take commands of other natures, like sleep. Yeah, that one
that's not going to work.
That one doesn't work, yeah.
One other thing that has kind of happened to David in the past couple of weeks is that his sleep cycle has improved a lot. And it's something that I attribute actually to a toy that he is just nuts about. It's by VTech. It's the Singing Hippo. I'm going to look it up online and post a link to it in the show notes and on our Facebook page so you guys can check it out. It sings lullabies, little segments of lullabies that kind of cycles through them, but it's also got kind of noise like nature sounds and just kind of light music. But then it'll also shine lights out. Like it'll project stars and shapes and different colors onto the ceiling and onto the walls of the crib and everything. It's super soothing to him. It would be very much kind of difficult to put him down at night because I would have to tell him a story, sing him lullaby, rock him back and forth a lot, turn on his little lullaby song, singing lamb thing, and then finally, once he's half asleep, lay him down and like sneak out of the room and pray that he stays asleep. But now I turn on this thing, I start holding him for a minute, and then he looks at it and he like wants to get into the crib, and he'll just play with it for a few minutes. Sometimes he will wake up and fuss, but then we put him back down and he's down for the night.
Wow.
He very rarely in the past couple of weeks will wake up in the middle of the night, which is crazy. Because it used to be at least once a night, maybe twice a night, where 1 a.m. we're woken up by him screaming and crying and wanting to be consoled.
Yeah. So is he waking up and just like interacting with this toy, you think? Or is it just helping him be more soothed when he goes to bed?
It's helping him to be more soothed. I think it gives him something to focus on, to where he's not kind of craving being held, which is good, because you want them to be independent from that. And of course, the downside is now he's dependent on this thing. We learned that the hard way because the batteries died on it at one point.
Oh, no.
And so for that night, he was just on his own, and that was rough because it would freeze up, like it would go rock-a-bye, rock-a-bye, you know what I mean? And it would freak him out. So he would wake up and just sit straight up in his crib, like, what the heck is this thing? This isn't what it's supposed to do.
That sense of betrayal comes in so quickly, and he just looks at you like, Dad, how could you?
Exactly. So anyway, I think that's been pretty cool. But those are the main things.
Amazing. No, I want one immediately. Yeah.
So, on to this week's topic, childproofing. Like I said at the top of the episode, my wife and I are just now beginning this process now that David is starting to walk. We kind of dipped our toes into it by starting to plug up all the sockets over the past couple of months, bought some child safety kits from Home Depot, that kind of thing. But the big thing that we've bought recently are baby gates for our staircase.
Sure.
So we're going to put one at the bottom and one at the top. And we've learned the hard way that these things are not just plug and play. Like, it's not one size fits all. You just pick it up off of Amazon and go with it.
Yeah.
It's very much like you got to figure out what is the right size, what extensions do you need, and the ones that we actually bought came with a defective part, so we couldn't even finish assembling it. So, but they seem actually pretty cool. The brand that we bought is called Dream Baby, and the model I think is called the Chelsea. They're these kind of nice.
What?
I know.
The Chelsea?
Seriously. Well, and it looks like an ornamental, wrought iron fence.
Goodness.
Like, it's not
I
just.
feel like we're talking 90s haircuts, like the Rachel.
Yeah.
Or like baby gates.
The Chelsea.
The Chelsea. Ooh.
Yeah. But they're probably overkill. But my
yeah,
wife
you
saw
think?
them, and she's like, "Hey, if I get that, it'll kind of match the banister of the stairs."
Absolutely. Why wouldn't it?
And yeah, so but anyway, it seems like they'll work pretty good once we actually get them assembled. But
Nice.
we're missing that one part, and then we're also missing extensions because the bottom of our stairs is wider than the top of our stairs. Go figure.
Nice. Now, the staircase, I know it can be kind of weird. I think we have a bit of a weird situation with our staircase. We haven't gotten to the baby gate phase yet, but it's not. How do I put this? Like, it's not wall all the way up and down. It's like wall, and then all the way at the very last few steps, it transitions into like a wooden banister all of a sudden. So you've got like wall on one side, wooden banister on the other. So
wow.
I feel like that kind of changes things a little, and we have to get some kind of specific baby gate where it can latch onto, a wall on one side but a banister on the other side.
Well, that's I'll tell you that the one that we bought does do that. It comes with these knobs, and you can also buy these extensions. Like if the banister is round, is curved.
Gotcha.
There's extensions for that.
Got it.
So that's kind of our situation. So we're gonna have like the bottom. There's like the flat. The base of the banister, it's kind of square, and then as it goes up, it kind of turns into this curved kind of design. So we just bought these little extension parts that are going to take care of that.
Nice. Got it.
Yeah. So, besides that, we bought these cabinet latches that we're going to start putting together in our kitchen. And those are pretty much like, there's different kinds. There's the kind that I think that kind of sticks on the inside, and then the kind that we got is actually going to latch to the outside. So for the double cabinets, we're going to have kind of where they're sort of locked together to each other.
Yep.
And there's just a thing where you pull it and it opens up, and as an adult you can do that, but as a kid, it's a different story.
Gotcha. Single cabinets, what do those look like?
Yeah, the single cabinets it's kind of a little more funky. What we're going to have to do is probably attach one side to the front of the cabinet and then kind of go up with it and stick it to the cabinet face above it.
Okay.
Which, we'll see how that works out. We may actually kind of finagle it, and we haven't kind of figured it out yet. We're gonna over the next week or so. That's when we're gonna kind of work out.
That's the challenge. It's between function and aesthetics at the same time. Because you want to pretend like it's not really there, but of course it is. So that's I think a pretty standard seems like childproofing apparatus, if you will. And I know that the thing that we found is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's really unique. Everything seems unique to me because I'm a first-time parent. It's all a whole new world for me. Right. But, my wife was really kind of intent on trying to find something that you wouldn't see. She wanted to keep that aesthetic out there. Yeah. So that you wouldn't just see the thing on the exterior knobs or whatever. Right. So I'll have to check on the brand name of this. But basically the way it works is it's on the inside of the cabinets. So if you open up a door or a drawer or whatever, there's a little kind of thing that you kind of essentially stick onto the inside, and that is basically the locking mechanism. What'll happen when it's locked is it'll kind of shoot up out of the top of it like a little bumper. Oh, cool. So that when it's locked, if you pull on it, there's a thing that's up above the door so that it can't go through the door frame, right? So it kind of blocks it. And then when it's unlocked, of course, it retracts and there's nothing in the way, and you open it, there's no resistance, but you can see the little thing obviously on the inside. Oh, that's cool. So the way it works is it's based off of a key, essentially. Not like a turning key, but it's just like this little device. It's like magnetized, where you kind of hold this little kind of plastic device over the spot of the door where the lock is. Yeah. And then that kind of connects through the, magnet, whatever, I don't know anything about whatever that is, physics, chemistry, who knows. And that will unlock or lock it, basically. So you kind of hold this thing over the door, it locks it or unlocks it, and then you can open it. Yeah. You just have to, the funny part though is you just have to remember where the locking mechanism is. Because if you just kind of wave it willy-nilly around the door like you're not getting it, you kind of have to know, like, oh yeah, it's in like the upper left corner, like a couple inches from the seam, because if you got to find the actual spot in order to unlock it. So that's a little bit comical. Yeah. But hey, the baby's not going to figure that out. The baby's not going to figure it out because I'm barely going to be able to figure it out. So that's about as far as we've gotten with the childproofing. But I thought that was actually pretty ingenious solution. If you really care about aesthetics, I will share a link to the product on our Facebook and other social media pages.
Yeah, totally. So since I'm still kind of new to the process, I did a little research, and as I was doing it, my wife kind of chipped in some suggestions to some things that maybe parents may not think about immediately when they think about baby-proofing the house.
Sure.
My wife does a lot of working from home, especially on Fridays. So one thing that she's noticed is if the baby is home with her, electronics are just absolute catnip for kids. So she'll work from her laptop, and she'll keep her laptop plugged in to the charger, which is plugged into the wall. And David is just sucked into that thing like a magnet.
Oh, yeah.
So she's had to be very careful about where is the charger when it is plugged into the laptop. Where is it when the laptop is not in use? All these things, because kids like to grab things and like to put things in their mouths,
Absolutely.
and you just got to be very careful about that. Also, chairs. David loves to crawl up to a chair and pull himself up on it.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really cool, except when the chair slides around a lot, if it bumps into a table, and if there's things on the table, so you just got to watch out, like, what is on that chair or on that table that could fall onto the kid.
Nice.
And then also the corners of tables. I think a lot of parents, they do have this in mind as they get started, but they don't think of all the different kind of solutions. The sharp corners of those tables, we've got these sort of rubber covers to our coffee table.
Okay.
That kind of sticks onto the corner. The downside is they're not perfect. They kind of pull off kind of easily.
Yeah.
It's adhesive that isn't the best. But, a more sort of lo-fi solution to that would be tennis balls.
Yeah.
I know a lot of parents will do that. It's maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing, but let's be honest, you're parents with young kids, your home is not aesthetically pleasing, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you're not going to take the time to, sand the corners of all of your pieces of furniture.
Right.
That's...
Yeah. And they also make these things that are kind of more like foam, like pool noodles, basically. Like I've seen these online.
Yeah.
There's different things you can do, but you got to make sure to just do something, especially when your kid is at stage where he's cruising alongside of surfaces. They're kind of prone to fall.
Just bumping into stuff all the time.
Exactly. And you don't want them to bump into the sharp corner of a wooden table.
No, that's so funny. I never thought about, and I think that's kind of an interesting point here, of child-proofing. What you don't think about is it's not just the electrical outlets, or it's not just the dangerous sharp objects and drawers in the kitchens and things. You mentioned some kind of like practical, non-obvious things like a chair. Does it move? How do you figure that out? Maybe you don't have a rolling chair.
Yeah.
Or like what's on a table that could fall. Like,
totally.
I've never thought about those kinds of things. I think about my panic attacks are over like the bookcases and things falling off of those.
Yep.
Because we've been slowly pulling them off. And actually, a funny story from my wife's past. So, she's not here, so I get to share the stories about her. Dressers, right? You don't think you think about anchoring anything heavy to a wall wherever you can, right? A dresser, obvious one. Those things are super heavy.
Yeah.
So when she was a kid, she would talk about catnip for the kid. She would go up to the dresser. She would love to pull out the drawers and MacGyver her way up the dresser.
Yep.
So you thought, oh, there's no way a 100-pound dresser, how's a kid going to topple that over? My wife will prove you wrong when she was a child, because she would just pull out one drawer, hop up onto that, pull out the next drawer, hop up onto that, create a little staircase for herself, essentially.
Was your wife Tommy Pickles from Rugrats?
It seems like it
so
more
innovative.
often than not. I feel like I had a bland, boring childhood in comparison to the stories I end up telling about her. So she had a near-death experience, if you will, because, of course, this wasn't anchored, a dresser, and this is like a solid wood, several pounds large device. Wow, device. A dresser that she was pulling on, and it fell. It fell onto her.
Yeah.
But the reason why she's still here, and I'm married, and we have a son, is because she pulled out those drawers.
Yeah.
So they fell, collapsed onto the open drawer, so she got herself pinned underneath it.
Oh, no.
But the drawers were open and kind of created a little bit of a wedge.
A little cave there.
Yeah,
wow.
it created a little bit of a hole there, so that she kind of
gosh.
got wedged underneath it and survived.
Holy cow.
But, I mean, Jesus, talking about scaring the crap out of the parents. Sorry for that trigger warning seriously.
After
the fact.
Austin's watching us on Facebook Live right now.
Hilarious.
So, hey, glad you were okay 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. She's 20 years ago. Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you. We don't talk about age on the podcast.
No.
But yeah, so think about that, parents. Like, I had the mindset going into this of like, oh, if it's super heavy, why bother anchoring it, because they won't pull it down. They will.
They will. The same thing happened to me as a kid. I think my brother and I were roughhousing in our room or something like that, pulling on the dresser drawers.
Boys,
and of course,
no way.
Right, seriously. And yeah, we managed to pull down the whole dresser. Luckily, neither of us were close enough to it somehow. I guess we kind
Okay,
of barrel
yeah.
rolled out of the way at the last second or something.
As you do, yeah.
Yeah. There are large, heavy furnishings in your home that you most likely should get connected to the wall somehow. And you don't have to use hardware to do it. Like I've seen things that are sort of more like these, I don't want to say command strip, Velcro latches or something like that, but they're similar.
No, we have one of those. So
Yeah.
like on the bookshelves in our living room, we just got new bookshelves maybe like 4 or 5 months ago, so we figured why not go ahead and anchor it because it's brand new.
Sure.
Just take care of it. And yeah, it's like a tiny strap on the back of it that's connected to the wall.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
about. It
about.
has like a little, it's not like a magnet, it's like a snap. So it kind of snaps in on the wall and then it snaps in on the back side of the bookcase. And it's just a strap that's holding it. So it's not a huge thing, it's not like a giant medieval drawbridge where it's like got cranking chains to like really hold it together. Because I mean, a strap can hold, I don't know, it's like 50 pounds or something, or whatever the weight limit is that it can manage when it's anchored into the wall.
Yeah.
It's probably more than that. And it doesn't even have to be on like 4 corners or anything, like even just one, because basically you just need to stop the falling from happening.
Yeah. That is one of the tips, actually, that I found on a number of baby-proofing blogs from parenting.com, which is a pretty cool resource for parents. A list of a lot of things that I had already thought about, but some things that surprised me. So I'm just going to go through them. There are a lot of great points there. Of course, door stoppers. Kids love to play with door stoppers. My kid loves door stoppers. He's got 2 in his room, and he'll just go back and forth between the 2 of them, kind of making some harmonies with them. But those rubber caps at the end of them can pop off, and kids will figure out how to take them off.
Oh, boy.
And, of course, those are choking hazards.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. You may want to think about just pulling off those rubber stoppers entirely. There are the little batteries that come in some toys. They're called button batteries. You may also find them in greeting cards that play songs and things like that.
Yeah, or like a watch batteries, like small, but even smaller than that. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Of course, those are choking hazards. Those are just things that you got to think about. Garbage cans. My friends and family that have kids that are crawling and walking around now, are always drawn to garbage cans for some reason. I think that maybe they see us putting the leftover food that they don't eat inside of them and like, oh, okay, that's where the food is.
Nice. So their brains are up to like dog level where they're like, ooh, food.
Exactly.
But not dirty food.
Yeah, but I never thought about that. But maybe it's a good idea to install some kind of safety latch on your garbage can so your kid, so you don't walk into the kitchen and find your kid
more
eating
about
garbage.
it just falling all over the place
That's
and then
true.
eating
That too.
something
Yeah,
less
absolutely.
than it, like a garbage can crushing them. Yeah.
Yep. And then, of course, there are some things that are not going to apply to most of us, like old freezers prior to 1971. That was a fear back in the 60s and 70s was your kid crawling into a freezer, getting stuck in there, and suffocating or something like that. Of course, that doesn't happen these days. Of course, it's not going to happen in our freezer because there isn't enough room to put food in, let alone, because we're parents and we make everything in bulk and freeze it
if
for
you had a
weeks and weeks.
freestanding one, well, what's funny is my parents actually do have an old school freestanding freezer in the basement, so I'm gonna have to tell him now. He's not allowed anywhere near that.
Yeah, something to think about. Household plants, aesthetic and beautiful, and maybe make your feng shui a little bit better.
Yeah.
But some of those household plants are in fact poisonous. Holly, ivy, something I never heard of, a philodendron, daffodils, paper whites. Apparently those, if your kid eats them, and most likely they will try to eat them, could wind up with you making a call to poison control.
Jesus. So it's not just like poison ivy is obviously poisonous to the touch. It's more just about if you actually end up
eating
eating
consume it, exactly.
Which you would never think about doing, hopefully, as the adult, but the kid is not going to have any qualms.
Exactly, yeah. They also talk about wicker, things that are made from wicker. Of course, the wicker may pop off, splinter, that kind of thing. We have 2 wicker baskets in the bathroom that the guest bath that we use to give our son baths. And every time I towel him off, he is drawn to those for some reason. I don't know why. I think they're instantly drawn to the things that are dangerous.
It seems to be like a homing beacon based on how dangerous it is.
Exactly. Exactly. So all these things, it's enough to really scare you as a parent, and you shouldn't be scared. You should
I'm
just
already
be prepared.
terrified, actually. You've
I know.
mentioned several things I've never thought about before. I'm pretty sure we have paperweights in our house right now. I'm going to go destroy them.
Okay, that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Another blog actually gave some tips on products, and I'm going to post both of these articles to the Facebook page and in the show notes so you guys can check them out. But some things I didn't think about, like stove knob covers. Because your kid, once they're tall enough, they're going to reach for those knobs, and you want to make sure that they're childproof so that your kid doesn't turn on the gas in the home or the flame or something like that.
Hey, guess who has those too? Me. Oh, geesh. Oh,
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah,
We are screwed.
No, right? You're not screwed. You just got to prepare yourself. Oven locks, toilet lid locks. That might be slightly a more obvious one. I've seen those in the homes of parents with young kids. I know for a fact that my cousin's son is drawn like catnip to the toilet. So he'll crawl over to the toilet, and if the parent isn't watching, he'll just stick his hands into the toilet and play with the toilet water.
Fantastic.
So those lid locks are important. Something that we have is a spout cover for the bathtub. Ours is, it looks like a whale.
Yep.
It's kind of cute. So, it looks like the whale is, I don't know, I guess vomiting the water out.
No, stop it. Come on. Spouting it. That's what whales do. The blowhole.
But out of the bottom?
I should, don't worry about
anyway.
it. Anatomy's not until high school. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to figure that out. Of course, they go through the obvious stuff, safety, gates for the stairs, that kind of stuff. Railing netting for the back porch is kind of a cool idea. Put some nets on it so your kid can't get their arms stuck in between or their head stuck, as kids are often apt to do. Which sounds funny, but of course could cause the kid to panic. Blanket, what do you call these things? Like a blanket chest, if you've got like a small chest in your home that you keep things in, like a blanket. Ours is actually an ottoman that the top comes off, and you could put the blankets inside of it. Not really a concern at this age because the kids aren't strong enough, but as they get older, they may lift these things up and, try and crawl inside to play hide and seek or something, or smash a finger, exactly.
Goodness.
So, yeah, those are good things.
So what I'm hearing is get rid of all furniture.
Yes.
Tear down decks and railings. Destroy toilets. Don't use garbage cans. Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, a lot of this stuff, may verge on paranoia. I always say there's no substitute for just being present as a parent and keeping an eye on them. Not to the point of being a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
But if you're keeping an eye on them, for the most part, most likely they're going to be fine.
Sure.
You want to make sure to bolt down the obvious stuff and the very dangerous stuff. And, you want to make sure you've got, for instance, good smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in the house.
Yeah.
Don't go nuts. And it does sound like a monumental task, but the cool thing I discovered is actually if you've got a little bit of a budget, there are pros that will baby-proof your house for you. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that. But there's a cool website, iafcs.org. Again, that's iafcs.org. It stands for the International Association for Child Safety.
Goodness.
This is this organization that helps connect you with professionals that will help make your house safe.
Nice.
And the costs can range a few hundred to maybe a few grand, depending how big your house is and what kind of job it is.
Gotcha.
But if you go to that website, they have a directory where if you plug in what state you live in, they'll show you who the professionals are, what kind of certifications they have, where they're based. We live in the state of Georgia. There are two professional companies here in the state of Georgia.
Oh, there you
so
go.
they list, the phone numbers, the websites, whether they do free estimates, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So you can then reach out, and if you want to spend the money, you can do that. We're probably not going to do that. We're probably just going to stick to doing it on our own, because now that we've identified everything, we kind of know where all the dangerous stuff is in our house.
Sure.
It's just doing it from here.
Yeah, but if your list is daunting, you got a bigger house, maybe you've got a bigger budget and you can kind of afford to do that, or your time is precious, or you got so many kids that you can't even get the time to do it, take a look at that. That sounds cool. I like a souped-up handyman, essentially, because you might have just hired somebody to install some things that you just give to them, but these people, it sounds like, know exactly what they would be doing, and exactly what to do.
Exactly. They could probably walk through your house and point out the stuff like, hey, you didn't think of this, you didn't think of that.
Here are 20 ways your child could die. That sounds like a great consult.
Right? Isn't that a great conversation you want to have? But an important one,
Yeah.
And I always say don't freak out, don't overreact to stuff. A lot of the stuff that I just listed sounds like maybe an overreaction, but maybe not. Every situation's different.
Yeah, we care about the information. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
being informed gives you that great G.I. Joe feeling. Knowledge is power. The more you know.
Right, and then just go from there.
G.I. Joe. And just to finish off with the key theme here, Jesse kind of brought up a good point. If this sounds daunting, think about it in this way. You can kind of baby-proof as you go. That doesn't mean you're being lazy. See what your kids are going after. Jesse mentioned that his son's going after the knobs on the door stops, so then you take care of that. And you can do that one at a time. Maybe he's not to the stage where garbage cans and toilets matter, but when he does start to get interested, if you're being, aware as a parent, which I think all of us are, because we're awesome, parents are great, you can take care of them one at a time. So that can be a way to kind of help you through the daunting. You don't need to baby-proof every aspect of your house up front, unless that just makes you feel better.
True. All right, so that does it for today's episode. Hey, Brandon, once again, if our listeners want to reach out to us with questions, comments, etc., how can they find us?
You can find us on all your major social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. You can drop us an email at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And now you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts across Apple iTunes. You can find us on Stitcher, CastBox, Spotify, everywhere. Go, go, go.
All right, awesome. So, Brandon, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are going to talk about milestones.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that, but it felt like a drum roll because milestones are kind of important.
Yeah.
So walking, talking, crawling, babbling, walking and talking, which none of our kids probably can do at the same time. Jesse and I have trouble with that. Walking and chewing gum is difficult. But we're going to talk about all major milestones that we have encountered thus far and just kind of the weird, funny things that happen along the way.
So, hey, thanks for listening. Once again, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And, hey, Brandon, how does Jay-Z talk to ghosts?
No idea.
He hosts a seance.
Okay.
All right, thanks for listening.
All right.